I'm Will, by the way.
Will, I'm Ron. Nice to meet you.
Ron, pleasure to meet you. Yeah, dude.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
So obviously this is our first time here at the posing clinic. I'm sure you're familiar with it though, obviously, with your
First
relationship.
time at this posing clinic, but with my relationship with a lot of the guys and the pros that are here. I kind of knew what to expect. This is a big turnout to start the season. Over 100 people for the very first one. I mean, so many of these people are here aren't even prepping yet. I mean, these things will absolutely get bigger as the season goes on and people become more nervous if they're not ready and they want to get the advice. So it's a great way to start the season for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely a huge turnout for sure.
Maybe what's a little background with you in bodybuilding? You've competed before, and
yeah. So I started competing in 2005. I won my first overall, the NPC Mr. Buffalo in 2000. No, NPC Tri-State was my first in 2009. NPC Buffalo in 2011. A couple of other overalls. I competed against Mike in 2010. I finally did my last contest. It was a Gary Unit show in 2013. So it's been about 12 years. I had a lot of success. I never actually made it to the national stage. I won 5 or 6 overalls out of the 7 or 8 shows I did. But really found a passion for coaching.
Yeah.
I'm a father of 6, and I have a couple businesses that really consume a lot of my time. So, as you guys know, being a competitor is a very, very self-absorbed choice you make, and a lot of things take a back seat to.
It's a full-time job.
To competing. So.
Yeah, we just had that conversation with Mike. I mean, it's one thing to obviously have 6 kids.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, you have businesses that you're overseeing, and you can be traveling, you can be here, you can be there, and like the amount of work it goes to planning those days when you're traveling or when you're visiting or when you're working, it's a lot.
But there's also parts that motivate this part of the business as well, like even just promoting shows and spreading the word and like still having, my hands in such a large part of the industry and the demographic I'm from. The motivation to promote shows comes not just from the passion to see people be able to do what they love to do, but also even just as another source of income. This is another job for me, promoting with 6 kids, and all 6 attend private school, so you can imagine what that tuition bill's like. So
yeah, and are you in New York too?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So there's motivation that comes from everywhere, but when you love doing something, the work that goes into, making everything you do as successful as you're capable of making it, there's still a sense of pleasure and enjoyment. Like I came out today with my top client, IFBB Pro, Bob Mazzara. He made the trip out with me today. He's over there as one of the coaches. And again, I'm working today, but I'm here with one of my top client, one of my closest friends, talking about my family and meeting great people. So
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
And I think we've talked about that too. I mean, this is a community that obviously everybody's here to help each other. And it's funny because the stereotypical bodybuilder is, self-absorbed jerk. There's all these different things that go around.
It's pretty consistent with what you just said.
Yeah.
it turns out.
But
Doesn't check out. Yeah.
They're some of the most genuine, hard-working people on the planet.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's like a mutual respect. Like when you see somebody that has built a really good physique, you almost have an instant respect for that person because you know the work that it took to get to that. You know what I mean? And I don't care what you've done or what you've taken, what you've eaten, whatever. I mean, your genetics, you still had to put that work in.
Right.
Yeah. So. Tell us a little bit about your show. So you got a show coming up?
So the NPC Western New York Championships, July 19th, 2025 in Buffalo, New York. It's the largest growing show in the entire district. Last year we had 120 competitors. We're growing by about 20% per year because of guys like Mike and Dan helping me promote. We show everyone a really different experience when they come out to our show. It's not your typical, no offense to people that choose to do that, but it's not your typical theater or high school auditorium or even banquet facility where everything's brought in manually, stages, lighting. The venue is incredible. It's a floor and a half. You got seating up top, seating down low. The ceilings are glass, so you get natural lighting. So you'll never argue that there's not a better natural lighting than you'll get on that stage because there's LED lighting and then there's this glass ceilings. There's 16-foot fans attached to the ceiling, so the crowd is comfortable in the middle of the summer, having it be a sort of an outdoor. It's an indoor-outdoor facility.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
The athletes are getting hit with those fans, so they're not sweating even though the sides to the building are exposed. You're right on the canal, so photo shoots for the photographers that come in are great because these athletes are drooling over getting their picture taken on a rock, with the lake behind them and things like that. The venue also offers competitors and their families in between events. We all know if you've competed, sometimes the crappiest time of the show is when the suspense sets in that you don't know how you placed and you're trying to kill time. coming from an out of town as a traveler, what do you do between pre-judging and the night show?
Especially in Buffalo.
So I put them together. My morning show, ends, usually I try to end promptly by noon. The evening contest starts at 4.
Okay.
So everybody pretty much stays on site. There's, for their families and friends or whatever, there's a restaurant, there's a bar, there's Jumbotron, sports on everywhere, there's canoeing, there's rock climbing, there's zip lining, there's an amusement park, there's a Ferris wheel, and all within 10 minutes you get the canal side there too, which gives you everything to do from an entertainment standpoint in the city of Buffalo, whether you go to one of the top restaurants or where the Sabres play or where the Bills are going to be, doing the promoting for their new stadium. It's all in one-stop shop.
So you
awesome.
and you run the traditional format, the prejudging in the morning, finals in the evening type of thing. Yeah, because some shows are moving. They started doing it in COVID, but they do all the men in the morning and all the women in the evening, which is interesting. I don't hate it, but I do. There is something cool about coming back and doing your routine and doing and getting your coming to finals and stuff. So
I think it's an interesting shift because women and men were always part of the sport together. I mean, my training partner of 16 years is a female.
Sure.
It's not something I would do unless my hand was forced. I actually like the fact that other than maybe having separate setups in the back for posing and for makeup and for hair and tan and stuff like that, for all obvious reasons, the actual competition taking place, some of the best girls that I've met and some of my top clients I've met while I was competing backstage, pumping up, getting to see what everybody's doing, hearing information that's getting shed, and then usually traditionally women bring bigger crowds. So if you got your open men, which is much smaller now than it used to be because of the rise in classic and physique.
Yeah.
Well, if you happen to put them last, like all the overalls I won, being a super heavyweight, I was the last person of the night to perform, the last person to get crowned, the last person to go. So now if you did that with open men, after the girls were done, everyone would leave, and they're performing for a crowd of 50 people.
Yeah.
So I put my open men first. So the crowd that they bring, which is smaller, hopefully stays, but you bring the people that make the biggest crowd, that gives every competitor a sense of importance on stage. If you put them at the end, and I think if you separate men and women, you also lose that component where competitors pay a lot of money to compete.
Sure.
And the reward, sometimes you won't call it expensive, or you won't call it as many things as competitors do. If after the show's over, everyone that came to watch you had a good experience, you got a nice award, you were recognized for any achievement you had that day or before that day.
Yeah.
If the promoter stays in contact with the competitors as they enter, leading up to the show date, is there, anything you want me to mention? Is there something you need me to do for you? If you're bringing in a family of 8 from Pittsburgh and you're coming all the way to Buffalo, I have contacts with, hotel owners everywhere, things like that. You make it a great experience so people get the return on their investment.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny, hearing it from a family side of things too. When you talk about the guy who's competing or the woman who's competing, they've already put so much time into it. Sitting at a stage all day, they're talking to other people that do what they do. The time goes by fast.
Yeah.
Right. I would imagine you sit there and have a 3-hour conversation between 2 or 3 people. You don't even realize. You're like, oh shoot.
Yeah.
While as if you bring in your family and your kids, obviously they want to support you. They want to be there, but they don't necessarily want to sit there all day and listen to you have all these conversations. So the fact that there's so much to do around the area really allows a competitor, I would think, to be like, hey, let's make it a weekend getaway.
And that's exactly
they get more out of it.
And that makes it awesome.
The nice part from a competitor standpoint for you doing it the traditional way, which I like a lot too, is number one, as a competitor, you diet for 18 weeks, 16 weeks, whatever it is, to get on stage, and they get you, and you're done by noon. I just feels bad. You know what I mean? And then so now you have the traditional prejudging and finals. You have a whole day where it's your day, man. You look great. You get to be on stage a bunch. Your family and friends get to see you, and then it also gives a good taste for all the people that maybe they came for a bikini girl, but they've never seen a bodybuilding show. You know what I mean? Oh shoot, this is what the guys look like. Oh wow, this is what it's about. I can kind of, you get a little bit more of a.
Well, how about just for the sake of social media now, or your website as a promoter, if the guys are done in the morning, they have no reason to come back and take overall photos with the females at night.
Yeah.
Right.
When my competitors come off stage, my wife and my expeditors take their overall awards. They have to give them back to make sure they don't leave. So at the end of the night, if they want their award, they have to stay until the show's over. So I can line up everybody on stage and take a photo together for the NPC office, for my own website.
Yeah, of course.
The competitors then after the fact, some of them are, they're hungry or they want to leave. They're always happy after the fact, when they get those overall photos emailed back to them, there's a picture of them and all the winners on stage still looking good with their tan on, with their trophy in front of them. Otherwise, a lot of those people, are going to take off. The morning, that would stink. Like if the girls came back to compete at night and there wasn't, none of the male competitors were out in the stands watching. When the open and classic guys are done and the girls are going to my contest, many of them are in the crowd sitting with their fans watching. It creates an event rather than just a competition. Those two can coexist.
Yeah. So that was the next thing I was going to ask you too. Is you mentioned trophies. What type of trophies do you give out? Do you do the medals? Do you do
medals and cups?
Medals and cups.
Yeah, just real different. Some people give out swords. Some people give out statues. Like monumental things. We started doing cups 10 years ago, like large cups with handles, almost not
like a Stanley Cup, but
Stanley Cup with the handles, with a big base. So the overall winners get cups. Class winners get large medals that are more, goldish in color.
Yeah.
And then the second through fifth get slightly smaller medal, but nothing noticeable, but more so just a tag on the back that you can't see, lets you know what place you got.
Sure. Yeah.
And every competitor you talk to, every promoter has a different opinion on what the awards mean. Some people say, well, if you get a novice award that's a medal, and you get an open award that's a trophy, and then you get an overall award that happens to be like 6 feet tall, it looks better on Instagram. Or if you just place first in novice, second in open, this and that, you have 3 different awards regardless of the side. Again, it makes you look like you just won everything. But at the same time, it's also a fact where if competitors, after they've competed once or twice, they want everyone to see what they look like and be proud of their physique. But no one likes telling anyone they lost if they're expecting to hear they won.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and to the regular person, the guy that's competing as your friend or family member, like you just expect him to win because he looks great compared to what you might look like, and then you got 6 out of 6.
That you've seen, look like garbage, but you think whoever you are at this, talking, you look great. How did you lose? But yet, for maybe guys like us that have been around the circuit long enough, we're looking like that's 8 weeks out.
Dude. Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's beast lead. He's not stage lead.
Right, but to the untrained eye or just the average happy supporter, they're going to think they looks awesome, and that conversation stinks. And at that point, do you lie and say, I didn't win? Well, no, you didn't beat anybody. You got 6 out of 6.
Yeah, 6 makes sense. That's always a funny thing. I see a lot of people post online that after they win a show, or they do a show like, I got 3rd place, and out of 3. Good job. Congratulations.
So I was just saying, does that happen a lot? Because I haven't been around the competitive side very long, but like I see, like I'm in any competition lately. My daughter does competitive cheer. There's like 3 competing teams that are in that class because there's so many classes now, and it's got to be the same when it comes to bodybuilding. Because
I was just talking to Dave Lieberman about how he gives out different awards for different classes, like novice, open, true novice, masters, and I liked his reasoning behind what he does, and then I always will think on my end of it, okay, what is there a downside? The only downside is if anyone goes to your show year after year and you start to build up a reputation or have a tradition of how you run your show that could be different than someone else's, you don't need to tell anybody what you got. They know if you don't have this, you didn't win.
Right.
You got that, you lost.
Well, and from an outsider, like I would think, like when it comes to competitions, like each show, like there's like there's something about that trophy. Like there's something that segregates that show, and the least amount of trophies you have tells me that it's a craving to want that one more, right? So and I will talk to Dave, but if he's got all these different awards for all these different things, but what's the one that I want? Or if I'm at a show that only gives away 1/3 of the awards, it's going to mean that much more. Like as a real competitor, you're like, I got to compete at that show and I got to place because.
I'll give you another example that would be a little bit more exclusive to me compared to a lot of other promoters, and only for the simple fact of how it lands in the calendar year. My contest is strategically planned in smack in the middle between NPC Universe, which is the first week of July, and North American Championships, which is the last week of August. So I go 3 to 4 weeks past one, 3 to 4 weeks before the other every year. I'm right in the middle for qualification standards and for requalification standards. I get a lot of Universe competitors that place outside the top 5 that need to requalify again.
They're already in shape, they do it, that way they can just be ready for next year.
You get a post-Universe competitor that comes in salty, even if they win, they're just doing it to requalify because they placed 8th at Universe. They leave their trophy backstage in the pump up and they didn't bring it home.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know how to do that, but that's
or if somebody just comes off stage that realizes, your mom's not judging you, Your sister's not judging you. You're not judging you. And I, the promoter, are not judging you. You are judged by the judges. They're the only people that can place you where you go. So if you disagree with it, you talk with them after the show or write them an email. Don't get salty towards
competitors or
promoters or anyone. And it happens sometimes.
I was going to say, is that
a lot of time and effort?
Yeah.
And I get it. I was there. I competed, so I understand. Sometimes it stinks and the feeling stinks. But the sportsmanship part of it too. Sometimes when you got 120 people at your show, you can guarantee there's going to be 10 awards left backstage simply because people don't agree with what he says.
That's to me, that was always a pet peeve of mine. I really hate and that goes to our community. Like when I've competed, I've always had everybody backstage is always super supportive, right? And if I got beat, I was happy for the guy that beat me. Yeah, and if I beat somebody, they were happy I won, whatever. You always had a respect for that person, and you never, even if you didn't agree with it, you didn't get mad at the athlete. If anything, you're upset with the judges because they're the ones that placed you. And this is a subjective sport. It's not like basketball where he made the shot or he didn't. Right. It's hey, I like that guy. I like his legs look great. You know, you might get a whole different panel of judges. They might judge it totally different. You know,
it's the look you get, who you're placed next to. Could change the opinion of someone's opinion on your physique.
Well, I mean, imagine even the lighting, the way that lighting could be at one side of the stage versus the other.
Judges can learn over time to look past that. And at the NPC level, these judges have to be qualified and signed off on by higher ups. Like you have to test judge so many times before they actually even take your scorecard into account. Typically, the head judge at NPC qualifiers, they don't do any judging until the overall. That's the way they keep it fair. What they're doing is making sure, like say, the judges are out in front of us. Us three are competing. One judge has you 8 out of 8. The other judge has me 1st out of 8. There's a huge problem. They throw them out. And that's the way you stay fair because it is a subjective sport.
Sure.
You don't know who's on the panel sometimes if they have clients in the show. It's a great way to keep politics out of it. You throw out the high and the low score.
Makes sense.
And you go through it. If the head judge needs to make any final decisions, they do. Other than that, the whole panel typically just judges, the overall to make sure they get it right. And I think the NPC does a very good job of preparing their judges to make the best calls that fall in line with the protocols and what is expected of each division because there's so many divisions now. And like you said, it's such a subjective sport. You're not going to get it 100% right 100% of the time, but you signed up for this.
Yeah,
right.
You know that. Yeah. And here's the cool thing about any show you do, yours, any NPC show you do, the judges will give you email feedback and they will tell you why you placed where you placed. So if you got second to a guy and you don't understand it, you'll get an email shortly after, or sometimes you even talk to them at the show and they'll say, hey, yeah, look, it was tight. I had a guy at the Indiana show last year, the Pro-Am. I had a girl in the bikini girl in the Pro show, and I had a guy in the Classic, and I didn't understand why we lost in Classic or whatever, and so it was close, and the head judge actually sought us out before we could talk to him, and he was like, listen, dude, it was Bill, and Bill was like, it was close. We were splitting hairs. We went with him because he was just a hair tighter in conditioning, and I went back and looked at the photos, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that, And I'm a little biased, obviously, I want my guy to win, but, it is what it is.
Another thing that people have to understand, too, as a coach, you being a coach, I'm a coach as well, when we're looking at our competitors on stage, we're looking at specific things. We're looking at things we want to see improve. We're looking at them at their best. We've also seen them
at their worst.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say.
How many shows have you done where you looked your best that prep at pre-judging or the night show? I know me. I don't know any.
Yeah.
Every show
week out,
usually a week or 2 out.
Yeah.
When you right after a cheat meal, when you're not really counting your sodium or nothing like that, you're letting it all hit the tissue with the electrolytes, and you're just popping. And then you never know if you're. So us as coaches, we've seen the ultimate highs, the moderate highs, and then some of the lows. And what we're doing is we could be so impressed with what we did as coaches. Wow, his glutes were hard and there was no striations just 4 days ago. Now they look like they were carved from stone because we bled the water right.
Yeah.
And you thought that was enough to put the slam dunk on, but then you turn them around, and where they judge a lot in the show is how deep are your cuts in your abs and your quads. And if the cuts are deeper there, although from the guy next to him, we're looking at one thing that we just couldn't believe we did.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, we really nailed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you don't look at the big picture. I get that 100%. And even there's a lot that goes into it too. I had a girl at she competed at the PA Muscle Show last year, and she looked really good like 2 weeks out, like incredible. And then as the show got closer, she started having a little bit of relationship problems. And then she had her sister died the week of the show, right? So cortisol levels are through the roof, and there was nothing I could do. I mean, I'm feeding her, doing everything. I'm like,
actually, you do anything drastic, she could end up even worse.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And I'm mentored by a guy named Morgan Rice out of Pittsburgh, and he's my coach, and I've worked under him for like 2 years now, and yeah, I'm like, what do I do? He's like, there's nothing you can do. Like, literally, like, her cortisol levels are high. Like, yeah, there's nothing you can do. You put her on the best you can. You land the plane nice and easy, and hope for the best. And she didn't look her best. She looked way better 2 or 3 weeks out. But sometimes there's stuff out of your control, or even just your first show. You get the nerves. You're stressed out. Whatever. Blah blah blah.
Well, I was gonna say all that stuff affects your hormones. All that stuff affects your levels. But at the same point in time, like, there's not a specific science that says this is exactly what you do for every single person, right? Because
we wouldn't have jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
So
there
like
was something we could download or print off Google that would say, if you're lean enough to do this the last 72 hours, you can't be off.
Right.
It doesn't work. But the biggest issue that I've had with competitors, and again, I'm someone that I don't remember, 8 shows and maybe 5 overalls. Like I did very well as an amateur and competing against some of the best NPC shows in the district. I never peaked the day.
Yeah.
Never. I don't even think once. Every show I looked better 3 to 12 days out at some point. And my coach for 6 years was George Farah, who at the time was one of the best in the world.
Yeah, legend.
When I was working with George, he had 6 of the top 10 in the world. He had Kai Green, he had Branch Warren, he had Dexter Jackson, he had Tony Freeman, he had Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I mean, so I was working with him. So I knew George was on point with his stuff. And it's just the way it works. But what I've noticed as a trainer now, I still keep good contact with George, and we talk about this, is that too many coaches try to make something greater, or something awesome more awesome. And if you all of a sudden try to completely reinvent the wheel or change, if you've been eating chicken and rice your whole diet, why would you think steak and potato would be the way to go the night before?
Yeah.
Right.
It's just common sense. Or if you've done really well, looking dry as a bone, the whole prep, the last 3 weeks, where you wake up every morning and it looks like you literally bone dry stomach, your cheeks are sunken in, and you can see the freaking veins in your hands coming right out of your skin. But your salt is at 6 grams a day, and you're drinking 2 gallons of water a day. Why would you knock your 6 grams of salt down to 1 and cut your water out the day before?
Right.
Well, yeah, it might work, but what if it doesn't? What you know works. And as a coach, I try really hard to have confidence in the process that's taking place throughout that prep, and each prep is different with every client, rather than just completely saying, you know what, I'm going to try to get them a little drier. There's no way they eat
Let's give them
salt and this much water that they can't get a little drier if I give them something to make them go to the bathroom. Well, how do you know that's going to work?
Yeah, you do a diuretic the night before. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this.
Reject it.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this where I see somebody that like looks good, and then they're like, they're trying to push the envelope a little bit. It's like, we're going to give you a diazide tonight. And then the next morning they look flat as shit and they can't come back. And it's like, just land the plane. John Meadows used to talk about that a lot. Like when you're in peak week, you shouldn't be making a lot of drastic changes. You might adjust water a little bit, you might adjust sodium a little bit, but it's very, very small changes.
And I think it's safe to say there are changes that need to be made. But
sure.
If they need to be drastic, I just don't know how you can convince me that you're where you need to be if they're drastic.
Correct.
It should be minor, and if you have a good coach, I mean, some coaches that I've seen, in my opinion, are ridiculous with wanting photos and weight every 3 hours.
Yeah, that's insane.
But I could see morning and night. Weigh yourself at bedtime. If you go to bed and you're 267 pounds and you wake up at 256, you can assume that you're holding some water.
Right.
So throughout that week, if you can get it down to where you're going to bed at, say, 262 and you're waking up at 257, that's a little more reasonable for what you know your body needs and what it can excrete. And you time it, but nothing's drastic. You're just working towards something.
Yeah, we've always, anytime I've competed or any person I've ever put on the stage, my goal has always been, let's get your fasted morning look to be the look we want on stage, and we just try to hold that. We try to hold that through the day and keep that look,
So would you say then, because obviously every time how many clients do you usually take on?
At one point, I had over 100 at one point.
Oh, wow.
I put 46 people in one show.
Wow. Holy
46
smokes.
in one show.
That was a fun week.
I thought I was gonna have like 8.
Yeah.
And that's not now. Like right now, I'm prepping 11 athletes for the NPC Mr. Buffalo show on April 19th. I have a pretty good team. You know, my wife is an amazing woman. She used to compete. Now she helps me run the businesses and takes care of the kids. But Bobby, you know, my top client, helps me a lot with the posing. I have a couple other really top amateurs that have been competing for a while that I coach that help me. The most time-consuming thing is the posing.
Right.
And it's the most frustrating thing because you can teach someone to pose as good as you can and they can nail every pose at check-in and get on stage and look like they don't know
What they're doing.
Yeah, they get the nerves hit them, whatever. Yeah,
and a
they're
lot
not
of it
comfortable.
too, and I'm not advising other coaches to change what they do, but I'm going to give a recommendation is make sure the closer they get to the show, which is totally unconventional, that's what I do and it's what work, is less and less time with the mirror. Instead of 100% posing 2-3 weeks out with the mirror. 3-4 days out.
You don't have a
just
mirror
the
on
video,
stage. Yep.
Just the video. Let them watch the video.
Yeah.
Do it again. Video. Do it again. Take the mirror. Let have a mirror on stage.
Yeah.
Right.
They become so dependent because new lines are coming in and they're zeroing in on things they didn't see a few weeks ago. They're forgetting about other things. I got a guy who's so happy right now that his hamstring quad separation on his side chest is popping. He
That IT band coming out, yeah.
Yeah. So he's like staring at that. Oh, before I know, this shoulder's up here, that shoulder's down there. He looks narrow. I said, what are you doing?
Yeah, get wide, bro. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's just one example of what happens when good things can make something go not so good.
Absolutely.
I do that anyways because, and when I do all my posing practice, I work with a guy, his name's Daniel Coffey, and I'm sure you probably heard of him. He's like one of the top posing coaches in the world. But he has me record my sessions. Every day I do a posing session. I do 3 rounds, and I record it, watch it back, fix it. Record it, watch it back, fix it. Record it, watch it back, fix it.
That's the way to do
it. And I could go back and look at those videos and see my adjustments and see, okay, that was good or that was bad or whatever. But I'm not in the mirror. I can't see how I look. I don't know, anything. So that's the way to go.
The biggest piece of advice I can give to a young coach that has talent and that has talent that he's coaching is the closer you get to the show, spend less time in front of the mirror. There's no possible way more mirror time closing in on on show day can help you. Camera time, yes. Coaching, yes. Feedback, yes. But different competitors look at different things in the mirror. They don't just close their eyes and hope for the best. They're looking at something.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that goes back to these posing clinics because then you have, and obviously the people that he had call out in front of everybody have experienced, they've done it before. But that is a great way, I would think, to get better at what you do, because if you're doing it out there in front of everybody, it's no different than you're being judged by everybody in here, and you're doing it without a mirror. You're doing it from memory. You're in.
Well, if you work with a good posing coach, what they're going to do is they're going to give you cues, right? So like Daniel gives me this cue on a side chest to pick up my front toe, so that way my weight is on the heel of my foot, my back foot, front toe of my big toe of my back foot, right? So I pick up my back toe, the weight's on my heel, and I'm able to focus on like using that front leg as like a stabilizer, get that IT band out, and so now. When I'm posing without a mirror, I have to think about the cues that he told me. Okay, I can't see myself, so I got to say, okay, pick the toe up, put the weight on the heel, push that adductor into the hamstring, make sure that I'm getting a good side leg. You go through all those motions.
Right. He made another great point too, and I even tell this. And if I approach a client or a client approaches me and inquires about my services, and for whatever reason, if it happens to be price or proximity or anything like that makes them maybe go a different route, I will always still give them a piece of advice to go on because I still want them to be sold on me as someone that knows what they're talking about, and I just want what's best for the sport. And if you decide not to hire me, I don't wish bad on you. I wish great on you.
Yeah, of course.
I just hope you're happy with your decision. Is the first thing that you can do when you're talking to a posing coach, if they're not teaching you from, let's say, open bodybuilding, for all 7 mandatory poses and any type of accessory pose to any mandatory pose that you want to alter. If they're not teaching you to pose from the toes up, they're no good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ground up. Build it up from the ground. Yep, absolutely.
Every single pose, no matter which pose it is, starts from the ground. And if you watch even some of the pros, that's how you can tell they're nervous. If you've watched them pose over and they're on the Olympia stage, if they're so focused on holding in their gut that their legs are going flat and hard, they're not posing from the ground up. they're obsessing over something they're self-conscious about, and a lot of times, then nowadays it happens to be they don't know what their stomach does.
Sure.
Yeah. So I use pro as an example because that's the one place you would think you'd never see it. It
See it all
happens
the time.
still.
Yeah.
What's that?
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
In the pro level, and it's because there's so much emphasis now with athletes holding in there. And even if you do have, a belly that sticks out on stage because you happen to eat a lot or you lift heavy and you wear a belt a lot, you can hold it in, but you got to practice.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Did your vacuums in the morning?
Make sure. Be trained to be kept in.
Watch your transitions. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: as different categories come out and stuff like that, but also judges, cycle in and out of all these different events and stuff like that. Do you have to keep up with like what's trending as far as, hey, look, right now for whatever reason, all the judges are looking at this versus this, or is it pretty consistent year after year, decade after decade when it comes to this?
Is that a question for me or
either one of you guys?
Well, what I would say about that one is
that could be answered.
Yeah, I would love to hear both your guys' opinion. I mean,
what I'll say about that is now. So it used to be kind of like you'd go to these clinics and then they bring some judges in and they tell you what they want, whatever. But now Tyler Mannion actually does these like reviews on social media. He's vice president of IPB. He's the one that basically makes the standard of posing, and he'll tell you don't do this. And like he does this even at a pro level. Like Andrew Jack would do a step out on his side tricep, and he's like, we do not want to see this. If we see this, we will dock you.
It makes it harder for them to judge you.
Yeah, it makes and so now because I used to have clients that do that. When Tyler said that, I said, we're not fucking doing that no more. You know what I mean? Like, that's gone. So because they're basically telling you what they want, what they don't, and so so that's for me, like I think it's easier now to understand it because Tyler gives those updates, and that's just a recent thing. It's only happened in the last couple of years or whatever. So
and even more so, really, like the last year.
Yeah.
Where Tyler's giving the reviews also on the national stage. So my answer is 80% on point with what he said. The only thing, because it's exactly what I was going to say, how the judges have been more direct in a sense where they need you as an athlete to make their job as easy as possible. When Bobby turned pro, and I was sitting there with him, and I'm looking up there, and there's 41 guys in his Open D Classic class, 41. And to be honest, that year it was tough. I have 41. 15 of them looked lights out, meaning every year when I go to nationals, any other year, any of those guys in the top 15 would have been top 5.
Wow. Yeah.
That
happens sometimes.
Yeah, if you got 40 guys in your class,
of course.
you got 10 scrubs no matter what. I mean, it's just going to happen. They went because it's a box to check. It was a bucket list thing. I wanted to compete at nationals. But then you're looking, it's like, wow. And again, being as subjective as this sport is, if you got 15 guys that just look lights out, that just got body parts separating one guy from the other, all the conditioning is close. Unless you have that easily 1-2, which you'll see a lot, they'll pull them right out and stuff and start judging everybody else. They want you hitting the right pose because they don't want to, at nationals especially, just get first and second right so they can get the pro cards.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
You place a guy 8 that deserves 3rd. He's not coming back to your national show. There's too many. He's going somewhere else. Because the feedback's going to be like he said. If you email him after, what's the difference between me and 8th and second? You better have an explanation. So the judges want to get it right. You'll see them rotate, move in, move out, and shuffle 20 through 25 because they want to get it right at nationals. It's not like, it doesn't matter. You've been going to some local shows sometimes, after the first 3, does it really matter if you get 4th, 5th, or 6th? Well, it's the competitor maybe, but when only the top 2 get qualification, I'm not saying it needs to be taken less serious, but there's just not that much riding on it. So at the national stage and the pro stage, that's why, Tyler and his crew, I think, have really tried to make it so that the judging across the board is being equal, and the only way we can equally judge you is if the poses are 90-95% similar to the people on stage. You do something way off, you're doing a different pose.
Yeah, they're not going to even see it.
You'll have, and it's interesting to know too that like when we pose to highlight our strengths and hide our weaknesses. So you might have a slight adjustment, in a pose, you know what I mean, or a slight difference, but it should generally look about the same.
Yeah, I was gonna say too much, and obviously they're out with you. You're not.
Yeah. So like I've seen guys at nationals this year that were doing, they'd be in a quarter turn and their legs are separated so far apart. I'm like, how is this happening? You know what I mean? Like this is crazy at a national level show. So it's crazy.
Oh, that's quick.
But yeah, it was really quick. But yeah, that was great. We'd love to hear about your show. What was the dates on it again?
So again, yeah, we got kind of off there. It is July 19th, 2025 at Buffalo River Works, and it's the NPC West New York Championships. You can contact me at WNYbodybuilding.com. Follow me at PrimmeranoFitness.com
Easy to remember.
Pro Muscle Gym, which is Bobby Mazzaro, who I'm here with today. His gym and his IG and Facebook and all that, we kind of promote together, trying to make both events and both fitness centers as big as we can.
Awesome,
Thank you guys for
man.
hanging out.
I know, man.
Yeah,
Nothing off limits, we got something